Today we have, one is the chapter, spoken Corpora, and the other one would be the presentation discussion, article presentation and also the discussion. So I will start with the chapter. Okay. So last week we talked about learner corpus, right? We collect data from learner. Do you remember what kind of problems that we may have when collecting learner corpora? What kind of problems or challenges? Yes.
If it's writing, then it's edited, so you might not be getting a full idea of how learners use language because maybe they've run it through spell check
True.
or a translator.
Yes, very good. So, right, and usually that happens in a classroom setting, right? So then they have to go through spell checker, they go through grammar checker and see whether their writing is correct in a way. So maybe they are not that authentic. So authenticity is the problem with learner corpus. Meaning, so what's the difference here? What's the definition? Not really definition, but like, what do people see about authenticity? Traditional way and what happened in learner corpora. Mary, do you think what you just said, do you think is authentic enough?
It's authentic for a certain, if you approach it in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
if you are approaching it from what first like comes to mind and how like the first unedited speech comes out, then no.
Okay, so maybe speech is more direct, right? Speech is more authentic because there's no way you can edit it. But then, in classroom setting, you can only elicit certain type of speech, right? So probably, we talked about this, probably you won't get people, students talking L2, chatting L2, unless it's really like in class they have nothing to do. Probably they'll say something, talk to their friends, but then somehow it's difficult to record that. Okay, so probably most of the time students are doing some kind of activities and then you record them. Then that's the kind of challenge that you cannot get, real authentic materials. But because we need learner corpora to analyze how learners use the language, so then it becomes acceptable in a way to use the data, not as authentic in a traditional way, but authentic enough to show the language pattern. Okay, so that's the goal of learner corpora. And then the paper that Sally and Aline going to present is also about learner corpora, right? But then this is spoken corpus, that's why they are presenting this today. Okay. So today we're going to talk about spoken corpora. Tell me, what's when you compare written corpora and spoken corpora, what are the differences come to your mind? What are the differences? I mean, obvious, there are some obvious differences, but yes, please talk about it.
So for spoken is real time. You need to speak out and to collect the all data. But in written corpora, you can check the grammar when you write.
Yes, correct. So just as Mary said, right? Like for writing, for written corpora, for students writing, you can collect it maybe at the end of the semester. You don't really need to be like, I need it now. But for spoken one, you record it, you have to take. If you miss the time, there's nothing, right? Even if you want students to say that again, they will change it. They will change it. So that's one thing. That's the difference. Anything else?
The
Yes.
texts are probably each smaller on average because
The text.
people don't usually, or like one person usually doesn't talk for like 5 pages.
Right,
at a
yes,
time.
very good. So maybe the length is shorter.
Unless you consider like a full conversation. as
Right,
well.
right. So
But then
depending,
then it has multiple authors.
yes, okay. So communicate, so maybe just not, so instead of just one author, maybe there's several interlocutors as well, and then to compose the whole spoken dialogue. Okay, anything else? Are you guys thinking? I hope you guys are thinking. Come on. What could be the difference? Think about the challenges. Well, or for example, which one is easier? Which one is more difficult? And what do you do with these texts, with this data afterwards, after you collect them? Are they the same or different?
Because when you speak, you have some speak feature. Like you may use to fill in the sentence. When you write, you will not write in the article.
Yes, okay. So you're talking about there are more features in spoken corpora, for example, the fillers, right? You use those words. It's interesting. Monday, I was in a presentation class in engineering department. And then so students were giving like a very short paper presentation just to talk about the motivation and also the objectives of the paper. So students will be like, today, I'm going to talk about, and then so in the end, the student goes, all the time. I was like, next time you change it to well, that becomes English. And they just, oh yeah, true. Because is more like Chinese, right? And if you use well, then that'll be English. So that's funny. But I said only for that student. Because the way he is okay to put well, not for every student. Okay, that's just something that I remember. Yes, fillers. I think one thing fundamentally different. When you have the written text, it's written, done. When you have the spoken data, first thing you need to transcribe. I think until now, no one really analyzed the spoken data by you just using the recording material. They still need to transcribe first to make it like text and then do the analysis. That's one thing, okay? And then, do you remember when after we collect the corpus, what do we need to do? We collect the corpus and then what? Clean, we need to clean, right? We need to get rid of the duplicates. We need to make sure everything's okay. That's one thing. What else? After clean, and then what can we do? What else can we do? Categorize. In terms of what?
So the data the research question related to the research question you want.
Okay, so first of all, when you collect the data, when you collect the corpus, I think you already know your purpose, right? You know your research direction, and then that's why you collect the corpus. Once you collect the corpus, you try to clean it. That's one thing. And remember, don't forget about the metadata, right? You want to make sure everything, all the information about this text. And also, you probably want to do some annotation, like POS tagging, memtization, all those things. These things also happen in spoken corpora, but it's more difficult. Why? First question. Fillers. Are they garbage? Are they trash? Fillers. Well, what are these? Should we take them away? Should we clean them out? Should we get rid of them? Sally say no, Ruby say no, and other people? Yes, no? No. Roy say no. Lawrence? My question is, should we get rid of them, right? So you three say no, and then? No, okay, but Lawrence really hesitate. You want to say yes? I think it's fine if you want to say yes, where, there are other options, different options. No, okay. Mary? No, okay. For me, I would say, depending on the research questions, depending on if you really need them or not. This is similar to written text. When we talked about, do you need to remove punctuations? those commas, those periods, do you need them or not? Students may write what's that called? Oh gosh, I forgot how to.
Exclamation mark?
Right, they may write like 5 times, especially for second language learners, because that's what they use. For example, in Chinese, do we get rid of them? Depending on the research questions, right? If you want to say, how do students use punctuations, then of course you're not going to get rid of them. Okay, so same situation. If you want to analyze how learners use fillers, you're not going to get rid of them. But when you have fillers, that will make a sentence ungrammatical. Ungrammatical, right? So that it will be difficult to use parser, automatic parser to do it. Then that becomes a choice. Do you want to use it or not? And then the other thing I'd like to share with you, the other day I was working on a project, and then Professor Joloso Friend Appel, he asked me to do some extraction from Corpora. And then so for the single words, they are easy. I just do regular expression and they'll come out. However, there are 2 words very problematic. So we are looking for words that will signal an example. So like when you say for example, then what you write afterwards is an example, right? So we are looking for phrases like that or certain words. One thing difficult will be e.g., e.g. period. Because it's easy from programming, but then it's a little bit difficult from using encode. I need to use encode because I need to check the result a little bit before I do more in programming. That's why. That one is difficult. Second one, the word like. You know, like something, right? That's an example. But when you say something, like this or like this, it doesn't really mean example. It could be something similar to something. Like, the word like. Like has several meanings. One, like as a verb. I like you, like. Or second, similar to something. Or third, example, like A, B, C, right? Then, if you just search for the word, you may get all these 3. Then I need to parse it, meaning, wait, not yet. I do part of speech tagging, POS tagging, to make sure I don't want verbs, for sure. And then if it's something similar to something, for example, I look like my father. Look like, that like is not an example, right? Then that could be part of speech, and also I don't want the verb in front of it. The verbs cannot be, for example, like, or feel, or something, okay? And the third one, then like, then I can find the example like, okay? I think the rule is quite clear, but when we apply this to learner corpora, what happened? Students may not use correct grammar. Then that will mess up the POS tagging. And more interestingly, higher level learners, their grammar is better than the lower level one. So my script can get, I would say 90% of high level learners, but maybe 70% only for the low level learners, because their grammar is even worse. And I just found this like this weekend, so I was like, wow, so interesting. And I'm going to share this with my class. This also applied to spoken corpora. Think about this, when you speak, there's no real period, right? How do you parse it? How do you, for me, it's amazing. How do you do part of speech? You don't even know where the period is. Maybe for us, it's clearer, but maybe for lower levels, probably not. And the corpus that I just talked about was the one that you saw when Professor Joloso came, and then also the paper that you read last week. That's the corpora. So basically, they're the same group of students. It's just that their writing is a little different in terms of proficiency level, and then I already saw that difference in that small thing. I think that's quite interesting for me. So in the end, I decided to manually tag all the like. Because then I don't have time to write a script and then do the work to show them the number. I just manually tag, and it's not that many. But I need to figure out the text the script later, because probably we'll have a bigger corpus for that. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to show you how interesting this is. Okay. So this chapter mainly talks about spoken corpora, and then it's interesting that they mention two terms. One is speech corpora, the other one is spoken corpora. Do you find the difference of these? It's they talked about this. 11.2 fundamentals. They talk about speech corpora and spoken corpora. What's the difference? They are both, you record some voices from words, utterances from human beings. But then they have different purposes. So what are the different purposes for these two? Speech corpora and spoken corpora. Yes. Very good, thank you. That's speech corpora. What about spoken corpora? Right? Spoken corpora.
They're compiled for linguistic purpose, such as hypothesis testing in the study of language use, and human communication.
Very good, thank you very much. So on these two pages, 236 and 237, they talk about the differences, right? So in our situation, which one are we using? Are we using speech corpora or spoken corpora? In our class, in corpus linguistics, maybe we collect something, but then the way we use it will decide how we call it. That's the difference. So when we talk about this, do we say speech corpora or spoken corpora? Spoken corpora. That's on the chapter. Spoken corpora. Okay? Because for speech corpora, they have something. They have other purposes. But then for spoken corpora, we're really looking at the language use. We care about how the human beings in the recording use the language. Okay? And then there are several ways. It becomes more important, right? We talk about the trend. And then there are several ways to collect a spoken corpus. For example, authentic, they say authentic, controlled, or highly controlled, or combined. Can you think of any situation that you can collect authentic language, authentic spoken corpora? Super authentic. Can you think of any situation that you can collect authentic language? Yes, why?
On the street.
On the street, probably, right? You sit in a park, and then you just record. Anything else? So maybe not just on the street, maybe we're in a restaurant. Okay, control and highly controlled. For example, I would say TED Talk, or what do you think about TED Talk? Is it authentic? Why is it not authentic? Because there's a script. Do you think they have the script first, or they talk first and generate the script? I think most of the time people prepare, right? Prepare. They may deviate a little bit, but usually they still follow their script. So when we talk about TED Talk, and then the other one is like news reporting or radios. These are more, not radio. I think radio is really talking. Radio, you don't listen to radio. Podcasts. What do you think about podcasts? Sometimes they just have one person come, they invite a guest and then they just start talking. They may have some kind of direction, but then they don't really write everything down. Okay, so that's the difference between like how much you controlled the data, So when you collect this type of spoken data, again, metadata is always important, right? You want to make sure. Okay. So, like I said earlier, this one is the transcription. First one, transcribe. You transcribe. We are at next page. Annotation. Okay. So, as far as I know, until now, I don't think any researcher will really just analyze the recording itself, unless they're dealing with sound, intonation, that kind of thing. Otherwise, they will try to transcribe it. So, for example, we were talking about fillers, right? So they will transcribe the fillers as well. Or instead of saying I'm going to, they say I'm gonna. The gonna will be also written down as well, instead of I'm going to as a formal form of language. Okay. And then later on, once we have the data, then we'll try to do, again, post-tagging, lemmatization. These are processing the data. And then this one is also different. Phonemic and prosodic transcription. Again, when we have speech data, we have one, how did the person really say the word? How did the person really say the word? So for example, there was one time I called a bank to talk about my problem in the States. The lady asked me, do you have a pen? Do you have a pen? That was my first year in the States. I was like, what? Why do we need a pen? And then I realized it's a pen. So it sounds to me like P-I-N, but it's actually P-E-N. Then, here, if I have to transcribe it, I will do P-I-N, or I will do the symbols for those. Okay? And the other one would be the intonation, whether it goes up or goes down. These things you can add in a spoken Corpora. And the multi-layer and time-aligned annotation, this one's very interesting. You can look at your page 243. This is very, I would say high level, very high level annotation. It shows you the sound wave. So, like where, I think you saw this, the upper part in maybe like Audacity, the software Audacity, or if you, when you're listening to the music and then you can change the wave like this, right? You can see this. So you can hear when it's, you can see when it starts and how, and what the value looks like. And then later on in the later, how to say, bottom part, and then it shows you every single, for example, whether it's verb or, sorry, not verb, vowel or consonant, and then how did the person pronounce the word, and then maybe, and then you also see that what words are they, right? So they're trying to split each word and trying to show you the prosodic information about this word, how this word was said at the real time, at the time. Okay. And then for this, we do have some, there are some tools that you can use to make this happen. So depending on your research question, right, you can decide to what level you want to use, the annotation level you want to use, depending on your research questions. Okay. And then I would say that why people are trying so hard to gather all the information, because they do want to search. Searching in written data is easy. Think about Word document. You use Control F and then you get it. What about spoken Corpora? If it's just recording, you cannot find it. You need some kind of transcription, right? So, for example, if the data collected by Americans, they use the word color, C-O-L-O-R. But then another set of data was collected by British people, so they use color, C-O-L-O-U-R. Then it becomes a little bit difficult to compare. You need to be aware of this difference, spelling difference, then you can search both Corpora, right? That's why here, this page, also on your 11 to 3, start from here. They're trying to say what kind of format we should store our data. So they mentioned XML. I think last time we talked about this in a text corpus as well. And then we want to make sure the metadata, right? It's still a challenge for all type of corpus. And then again, we want to be able to search. When we use nconc, right? You search a word and you can see all the lines. You can see how the language is used, how that word is used. And we also want to see that in the spoken corpus, but sometimes just difficult. Okay. And then here are three. The chapter mentioned three. The chapter mentioned three corpora, spoken corpora, representative corpora. So I think this one is easy for you to get, the Michigan one. And then the one is for German and English, and then this one's Dutch. Okay. These are very famous ones. And then, but then I would say, see the language different language have different program. So maybe for you guys, if you want to work on spoken corpora, one, try to find something already exists. And I would say try to find something maybe is recorded already. For example, TED Talk, right? Maybe you can find something like how do they show certain emotions, I don't know. By doing that, then you can look at the video and then you have the script ready. And that'll be easy for you. I'm sorry for the class, I don't encourage you build a very big corpus by yourself. That's not the class purpose. Okay, challenges, documentation, metadata part still, it's always a challenge. I don't know. I think different researchers prefer certain ways to do certain things. And then maybe, people have different personalities, so then sometimes it's difficult. But then we do want to have, like, let's say I collect the corpus, you collect the corpus, researchers collect different corpora, and then we try to use others. But then there is always ethical issues. Because maybe you consent or to what extent the corpora can be used by others. We want to standardize how we not how we collect, but how we record all the things. Difficult. And then lastly, search tools. We do need something that can search in the spoken corpora. That's something is difficult, still difficult right now. Let's say, because for example, you can ask, I think Word is okay, Youglish, right? The website Youglish. Yes?
And our data collect from two large corpus, one for second language learner, code LIDSE, and for native speaker, it collect data from LOC and EC.
So for the L2 learner is for the spoken learner corpora, and for the native speaker, this one is the native speak corpora. So the data is all from the corpora.
And the participants have 350 students in different first language backgrounds. And their data analyzed in two ways. First is manual coding and random forest state models. So first, the author categorize the adverb into 5 positions, including initial and before, inside, after the verb phrase, and the end position. And then they call the variables, including adverb types, verb types, auxiliary verb, and first language background. And they run the analysis, and they use random forest model to run the analysis again, and they get the results. So the main finding of the study found that the most important facts that the first important factor is type of adverb, and the second is present of auxiliary verb, and the next is verb type. And the study also found very little evidence of first language transfer. Advanced learner shows near native pattern than first language background speakers.
Before we go to the next section, let's doing some small activity. So this is where should the adverb go. So the question is that which sentence should most nature and why? So and when you can choose one sentence, so which one the verb placement is more nature, the most nature? Yes.
Mary
yes.
say 2, yes, good.
Yes, the answer is 2. So in English, the adverb usually go after the auxiliary verb. So just like will already, so it's always have the will possible, will probably, and is always and have already. So like this. So this is the English. This is relate on the English grammar. But for the L2 learners, they sometimes put the adverb in different position. So this is why the other want to investigate in this study that where they put the words is on their first language background or is on the linguistic factor. So let's come to the critical evaluation. So the first point I want to say is that the research question and methodology are well aligned. So the study wants to investigate the factor includes the adverb placement and where the L1, the first language transfer exists in the spoken L2 second language use. So the other use both spoken learner Corpora and native learner Corpora. So in manual coding of verb position and linguistic features, and use of the random forest statistic analysis to analyze the results the other want to test. So these methods are appropriate for answering those research questions. And for the two of the critical thinking is that the strongest aspect of the study is focusing on the spoken production. So the other focus on the spoken English and reflects more natural and spontaneous language use. And it includes the multiple first language background like the Spanish, German, and French. So it allows cross-linguistic comparison. So it considers both the linguistic factor and extra-linguistic factor and use of the cohort data and statistics model to make the result more reliable. But however, the study still has some limitation for the result. So the study only includes the upper learner, the high level of the academic learners. It does not include the low level of learners. And it didn't compare with the different proficiency level of the learners, only the high level. And the study does not include the qualitative information like the intonation or the process. So for future research area, it could include the lower learners Corpora and also study on persistence in spoken English. Next.
As for the value to the field, the finding to provide sufficient support for the author's conclusion, and the results clearly show that linguistic factors are more important than first language inference. And this is supported by a large data set and stats analysis. And the study also fill the gaps because previous study only focused on written, but it is study focused on spoken English research. And it also supports SLA theory. It can also practical implication for speaking teaching. There are layer methods appreciated for answering the research question, and I think yes, the methods are appropriate for answering the research questions. The study used large spoken corpora from both native speakers and learners, and provide real and natural language data. In addition, the use of random forest model allows the researcher to analyze many factors at the same time and identify which ones are the most important. This made the method suitable for investigating what influence ever placement in whether first language plays a role. The finding provides the finding provides sufficient conclusion in this study. The results can clearly show the linguistic factor, and we can note first language inference is limited, and it uses large data and random forest to analyze this data and can make this data more accuracy. But there are some limitations. The study only advanced learners, and they use limited speaking context.
So let's come to the discussion part. So for the first question of this article, this study found that linguistic factors are more important than your first language background in predicting the adverb placement. So my question is that what does this suggest about the relationship between grammar and language transfer in advanced L2 learners? So you have 1 minute to think about this question, and after
They can discuss first.
you can discuss.
How about you too? Everything's moving a little bit too fast. Can we go back to the results first? The result. This study, they are comparing the use of the place where adverbs are by different L1 background L2 learners. They found that the most 3 important factors are 1, type of verbs. Second, presence of auxiliary verbs like will, is, and are. And third, verb types. So in this case, we found that number 2, linguistic factors greater, meaning these factors are more important than their L1 background. So the L2 learners don't really misuse or misplace adverbs because of their L1. And number 4, advanced learners show better near native patterns, like they place the adverbs in better places. Okay. Then we go to your discussion. Okay. Then the first question is, what does this suggest about the relationship between grammar and language transfer in advanced L2 learners? What do you think about why L2, advanced L2 learners? I think they are less influenced, maybe, by their L1 background.
So I go down with this question. So let's share with maybe Lawrence group.
I see. Like I don't understand
Yes, and because for the high level of the second language learners, when they use the adverb, they always follow the grammar, not the L1 background. So that's why. And what about Ruby and Mary's group?
Well, we said a very similar thing. Even though the study is about adverb placement, you can guess that in general, higher level learners don't transfer grammar that often from their original language.
Okay, let's move on to the second question.
So the study only includes upper intermediate to advanced learners. So do you think the results would be different if beginner learners were included?
Mary's and Ruby go first.
We thought that it would make a big difference because even like within the range of learners in the study, the authors noted that the upper intermediate as opposed to the slightly higher advanced were a little bit more likely to transfer. So you can assume that like beginners who are all the way below upper intermediate would be much more likely to transfer from their original language.
And Lawrence claims.
It's similar to the answer. So, because they're not familiar with the second language yet, so they'll use their first language grammar to like express what they want.
So it's interesting, but that with the high level learners, they will more relate to the second language grammar. But when it comes to the low level, they were not familiar with their second language learning. So that the results may be different when compared with the lower learners.
It's because beginner learners will more rely on their first language. And the last question is, the study shows very limited first language influence in advanced learners. So does this mean first language is not important in language learning, or does its roles change over time? From Joy and Woods.
We think one is still important because when you start to learn a new language, you still need to connect to your L1, and then you want to be better understanding how you are learning them. But its role is still, its role will change over time. When you become more and more familiar with the second language, you find that need to your L1 support.
We thought a similar thing. More or less, it's your L1 language is still important, especially when you're learning another language for the first time, because even though you don't know how to convey anything except very basic concepts in your second language, your brain automatically still wants to use complex grammar. So automatically you transfer your old grammar from your first language to your new language, but then as time goes on, you no longer need to do that as often.
So our answer is similar. We think first language is important at the beginning, but maybe it will become less important as the learner improves.
So next part, let's go to the conclusion. So I will give the study overview to review this article. So for the researchers, you want to investigate the advertisements in the first language and second language spoken in English. So it examines the linguistic factor and the extra linguistic factor, and also the L1 transfer in the second language in English spoken use. And it found like the linguistic factors were the strongest to predict in the study. So that's why the L1 transfer was very limited when the high-level learners use. So the advanced learners will perform similarly to the native speaker. And this study also has the strengths and limitation that the use of the spoken learner cohort and native speak cohorts, and use of the multiple L1 backgrounds like French and German and Spanish. And the author also use the statistical analysis to analyze the study. But the limitation is that it only have the high-level learners, didn't include the low-level learners, and there's no proficiency comparison in this article, and also no persuasive analysis with these cohorts. So the study found that high-level learners was influenced by the linguistic factor, the grammar, follow the second language grammar to speak when they speak the second language. So, that's grammar learning is very usage-based when the high-level learners was learning. So for the future study, it will be more needed to research on the different level of the learners and the spoken features. So that's all for our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is our first presentation. I do like it. I think it's a little bit different from your usual presentation, right? Yes, because we don't. I hope you still find time to read the articles, and then because you guys spend a lot of time choosing which one to present. Let me just quickly go through this one and tell you what you should be aware of when you are making this presentation. Let's go back. I think the first part is fine. That when you introduce the study and give the summary. Okay, but please be aware that when you are talking here, you are the expert of this paper, but not your classmates, right? So that's why I came back. I said, oh, we need to talk about the results again and then move into the discussion questions. Otherwise, your classmates are like, what's going on? Not sure. Okay. And then I would say that I did not ask you, to do like a very thorough presentation about the journal article, but just get it, not the details, but the most important points. But please make sure you talk enough about how to connect your methodology to the results. So for example, here we know that, like this, I think this part is good because you tell us what kind of things that you can annotate. In corpus study, it's always about how, what to annotate and how to do it. Okay, so I think these are good. These are written in the paper as well. Now here, for example, we found that these three are the most important ones, right? How did they find them? Do they only look at frequency? No. What did they use? Random forest, right? You just skipped conveniently an important part. Unfortunately, I know about it. Okay, we can. So let me just briefly talk about it. I'm not going to talk about if you look at this, sorry, I don't have the page number, it's under table 4. Okay, so this part is about random forest. So basically you can think like there are trees. And then you give them, so the goal is to figure out what are the important factors to classify certain things. For now, I still don't know what they are classifying. I haven't figured out yet. But once they classify, once it is successful, then the you know, the tree branches, right, will go this way, like a Y, opposite Y. Then that point is the point meaning the reasons, meaning the factors. So what are the factors that will split? So the trees will get splitted. That's the factors. Then that's why you see this picture. They just, you know, skip it. Okay. Then yes, okay. So then you can see you can see the numbers. We don't know what they are, but it starts from 0, right? And then to 0.12. And then the highest one is called adverb. That's the adverb type. And the second one, auxiliary yes, no, meaning the presence of auxiliary verbs. So these are the importance of the factors by using random forest. So they calculate by doing that. So not just the frequency, like how many times where the verb happened, and then because there are so many factors to decide whether they do it right or wrong. And so they use random forest. Okay, for me, I'm not sure why they chose random forest. I believe there are other ways to do it, to do similar statistic calculation analysis, but then that's their choice. Okay, so that's what I meant by you need to be, when you're reporting, it's important to mention, to talk about what methodology leads to what results, not just the result. Because we don't know the connection, that it becomes a little bit difficult. Okay. And then I think for the critical review, so like here, this is Sally talked about this. And then starting from here is Eileen, right? But then I feel like the content is a little bit overlap, right? So maybe you want to merge the content, so then you will be more, you know, not redundant in a way. I feel like something is really said earlier and then once again in it. Okay. I do like the discussion questions. I think they're not too difficult, but you know, because they are the first group. Later on, the questions should be a little bit more difficult. Okay, I think these are fine for now. These are fine. And then what you're learning right now is listen to your classmates talk, and then give them feedback. Feedback doesn't need to be like you're right or wrong. It's not really about right or wrong. Oh, that's what you think about. Yeah, that's a good idea. And then we thought about this. You know, make it. I know, I understand you're practicing, you're learning, you're really using English to talk about something. And then for discussion questions, it's not really about right or wrong. It's about what you think. Like when I saw these questions, I do have different thoughts that I want to share with you guys. But then I was like, no, it's your time to talk. For example, so what does it mean when is L1 really not important? L1 is important. L1 becomes problems when you speak L2. But does that mean that's not important? No, because you still need them. You still need the basic grammar. Because you have L1, it's easier for you to learn L2. You know what language looks like, then it's easier for you to learn L2, right? So when you talk about this, maybe you can add some examples. When you're responding to the presenters, maybe you can add some examples that people can understand you better. And then I think for Mary, I think for you it's easy to do discussion questions because that's what they do. You know, in my MA and PhD, I'm like, what are they doing? Why are they asking questions that looks like not really similar to what I read, but then they are, just talk about it. That's what happens in the classroom. So for Mary, you can see she was like, yeah. And for you guys, first question, you guys are like, what does that mean? What does that question mean? And that, but then that's totally normal. That's totally, so we are practicing how to make a good discussion. But good doesn't mean it's always right. You know, we're not talking about right or wrong. Think about when we talk about this, we are talking about language learning in general. So you can draw information, your knowledge from all of the classes that you learn here. Not just about corpus. Corpus is a method that we can analyze how language is used, right? So here's one topic, and then we can think about how language is used or learned in general from all of your course. I think that's the goal of the discussion. And I think that's different from you just present your article, right? Because you just present your article, meaning only 2 people are busy today. But when it's discussion, everyone's thinking, and I think that's the goal, okay? Good, thank you very much. I do enjoy it very much today.